Welcome to the Event Life podcast, where we dive into the live event scene and have conversations with the people who make them happen. I'm your host, Esteban Quadros, and I'm joined by the ever insightful co-host, Jessica Barrett, and we're excited to share the conversation with you. Enjoy. All right, Ashley Cook. Thanks for coming in. Ashley Skeie Planning and Floral, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And owner of the Annabelle House.
Yes.
Awesome to have you here. Thanks for coming in. I know traffic sucked to get here, but you're
I
here.
earned this drink.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly. Back a long time ago, I think kind of when I first met you, you talked about a story about how you discovered that you could go to school for planning. Am I remembering correctly?
Yes.
Okay.
I was already in school, going to school for something else, and then realized that you can major in event planning, and I immediately changed my mind.
What were you going to school for?
Interior design.
Okay, so not too far off.
No. So I went to school in Tennessee. I moved myself all by myself down south because I'm like, I need to get away from here. I'm going to go to school. And in high school, I always would move my room around and paint my walls. And so that's what I wanted to do, was make pretty rooms. So this is the perfect role for me. So then I go down to Tennessee. First day of class, the professor is like, if all you want to do is just paint walls and move furniture, you don't need to be here. I'm like, well, that's why I'm here. So
And
that's a bummer. Yeah. Okay, cool. So their program was more like architecture, building things, which I had no interest in. But I had no idea what else I wanted to do. I didn't decide I wanted to be in interior design until the spring of my senior year.
Sure.
Everyone else had way decided. I'm like, I don't know.
And then they all changed it 7 times. So
Yeah.
also.
Yeah, and most of them were hairdressers, which is fine. Good for
Yeah.
them. We need
Yeah.
those. So I'm I literally have no idea what I'm going to do, so I'll just keep doing this. And then it was towards the end of that first year, I was talking to someone why are you here? And she's like, I'm here for event planning. And I'm like, what?
So you had never planned an event before?
Well, I plan my own birthday parties.
Okay.
I didn't know you could have a career in it.
Yeah.
But when I tell you I plan my own birthday parties, I would make proposals, I would make guest lists and themes and give it to my parents and be like, here's what I want to do
You
for
sent
my
your parents
birthday.
an RFP.
Yeah,
okay.
basically. Here's my BEO, of everything that I want for food. And so I was already good at that. And people loved coming to my house for my parties. And so when I found out you could have a career in that, I'm like, tell me more about this. So the very next day I went to my advisor. I'm like, hey, I want to switch. What does that look like? And luckily, like you said, they're very similar. So all of the credits I'd already taken transferred over. So they're all under the umbrella of consumer services. So luckily it didn't interfere with a ton. I think I had to take one summer class to get caught up, but
Nice.
I switched that very next year and I've been doing it ever since.
I feel like there's not that many, or I guess, when was this? What was the time frame that you were at school?
2000, it would have been 2004 or 5.
Okay. So I feel like there was not that many event planning programs out there.
There
or,
wasn't.
Education. So what school was it, if you want to call it out?
My high school or my college?
College.
So I went to Liberal Arts College in Knoxville, Tennessee, Carson Newman.
Okay.
So a small art school. And around the time I was going to school is when all those HGTV shows were coming out, where you would change houses with your neighbor and decorate their house or whatever. I don't even
Trading spaces and all that. Yeah.
So I
Throw
watched
some hay
that
on
all
the
the
walls.
time.
Yeah.
So that's what I thought I wanted to do. And then when I learned it wasn't I didn't need a 4-year degree to do that. I could still do that. So I switched, which honestly, staying with it that first year has helped me even now, with floor plans, because you have to go through drafting and learning how far electrical needs to be apart and how far out lights need to be from where the ceiling meets the wall, all these weird things that shockingly have come in handy now, which is nice.
So you switched and then you ended up not finishing school in it, is what you're saying?
I graduated. I just
you did
switched.
graduate.
I switched majors. So I went from interior design to
Okay,
event
gotcha. I
marketing.
thought you said you switched again, and I was like, that's the college
no.
story right there.
Right? Yeah.
Switching
No
5 times or
Yeah.
whatever, but
No,
that's
there's
super
many
cool.
times when I'm I'm not staying here. I'm going home. But I did finish my 4 years there.
Nice. So what was the degree actually in all said and done?
Consumer services.
Okay.
With an emphasis in event planning?
Yep.
Okay, cool.
Event planning and business.
Nice.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I feel like that was it's growing quite a bit. There's like a lot more programs for it now, but for years there was
many.
Next to none.
Yeah.
So
I don't ever recall ever seeing anything about event planning when I was going to school.
No.
Yeah.
Around 2005.
Yeah.
Somewhere around
I remember
there.
looking at one point, and this was like in 2000, because I graduated from college in 2003, and I started working in like professionally doing events in 2004, and started looking for like maybe some further education like a couple years later, and there was not a ton out there, because I think I was looking specifically for like a master's program or something, since I had a bachelor's. I was looking for something for further education, and there wasn't much except like Vegas, right?
Yeah.
I was like, well, I'm not gonna relocate to Vegas.
Yeah.
And I don't know how I feel about doing like, it was like online courses. Obviously people were doing them. I just was like, I don't know, I'm an elder millennial, so
Yeah.
I'm technology adverse sometimes. I was like, I don't want to do online classes, but
Yeah, for me it was like such a different thing. Like how I got in events was like I played in bands and I played music, and then I got into catering for whatever reason because I was not doing so good in life.
I was like, because you were
Do we really want to get into the details?
So,
I've
You're
heard
like,
stories.
should I work at a gas station
And
or
then
become a caterer?
became a caterer, but maybe better than a gas station. I don't know. I never gas station did any of that shit, whatever. But and then slowly but surely, I was like, oh, I could probably do that, and then that's kind of how I got into it. But like it was like foreign to hear from you that you went to school for it. That's why I like remembered it, because it was like such a foreign concept.
Yeah.
It is.
Well, even now, like people ask me, like I'm thinking about getting into event planning. Like, what school do you recommend? Like, honestly, like don't tell your teachers, but I don't recommend going to school for it because you don't need it.
That's exactly why I was bringing it up too. Like, did school teach you something that you can't learn just from, like, if I was trying to be an event planner and I got a job at Ashley Skeie planning and events and Floral and all that.
Come work for me. That'd be so fun.
Like, yeah, but like you can probably learn everything through somebody that's just a good enough teacher and has enough business. Mm-hmm. But like what does school teach somebody potentially that maybe is harder to teach somebody like actually in the field?
This is going to be terrible, and like stay in school, like don't drop out. But I feel like the best teacher is hands-on experience, because nothing prepares you more than actually like being in the trenches with people. Yeah. Like I made friends in college, but there isn't anything that sticks out to me like, oh, I learned that in school. Like, thank God I went. Yep. It was more for like the experience of like going to college and like having that,
getting a degree.
Yeah.
And
yeah, but like
making
no
parents
one,
proud that you accomplished something.
Like no one ever like when I have a consult call, they're like asking me what my degree is in. Like nobody ever asks.
No one ever thinks that you could have a degree in event planning for one thing.
Yeah.
I think that's part of it. But I feel like because I was working in events before I went, so I did end up getting a certificate in meeting and event management from Dakota County Technical College, which they don't have that program anymore because the person who was running it has left and retired. Rosalie Lee, she's amazing. And what was interesting about it was, as working as a professional and then going back, was learning how there's certain things that I was already doing, but that there was actual like theory behind it or like real data behind it, as opposed to me being like, that feels right, you know? So it like kind of solidified a lot of things. And then a lot of times I feel like there was things that I just didn't know yet. But formulas but it's all things that like, I could never in a million years remember exactly like how many square feet per person if you're doing banquet style seating. I would Google that shit right now. Yeah. Like there's no way I would remember, even if I can barely remember what size linens go on what tables still, even though I've like done it 1,000 times. So yeah, practical application is very, very important. But I do think that there's like an interesting place for both of those things. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's cool.
Yeah. I would say like if you want to go to school, obviously go to school, and instead of going like right into event planning, like find like a niche like design or like hospitality, something where you can learn. And maybe like the experience is different now because I'm very far removed from college. So maybe they have a lot more options now than they did when I was in school. But finding something that's a little bit more focused so you can learn in a deeper way than like just event planning.
Did they go into like detail on like the financial side and billing? Because I feel like that's something that like a lot of new businesses struggle at. Because like I think people understand the concepts of like okay, this is how we line people up for a ceremony, and they can understand all those things. But then when it comes time for a website, and then how do you take payments,
and you
then
have
how
your
do you
degrees
do
in business too.
accounting?
Yeah, it's like an emphasis on
you're
business. So I wouldn't say that's like the major focus. I did have to take. This is lame. It was basically like home ec, where you like went through like budgeting and like how to cook things.
Oh yeah.
So I did learn about like financial things in that way, but I wouldn't say I learned. And again, might be because it's been a long time, so I just don't remember. But there isn't anything that I remember like learning specifically. Like this is how you start a business.
So it didn't transfer like the way you would maybe want.
Yeah.
Like, at least, and I think those are one of the things that you like don't really know when you're getting into it. Like,
yeah. Unless you grew up in a family where like starting businesses was something you talked about around the dinner table. It was like not something that you picked up in school necessarily.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like I also Googled a lot of that stuff at some point, or found mentors who knew how to do those things. I also think when people are first starting out in the industry, there's sort of like a propensity for them to think of it being like a kind of singular thing, like it's event planning. Right? Mm-hmm. And people don't think about like all the different facets of that. Like you're a planner, but you also do floral. And like there's people who do the catering side of things, there's people who do the venue side of things, there's people who do rentals, like all the different aspects of it that still fall under that category of event planning. Mm-hmm. And so like a lot of times when I'm talking to people about wanting to get into the industry, I'm like, you should try out some different things and see like if you like doing events, it doesn't mean you have to be a planner.
Right.
Or like you don't have to start out that way or try to start your own business. You can like try out these other things and see if one of those things is a fit, because you're still getting that creative like itch, but not, necessarily like having to be the planner position.
And honestly, like even if you want to be a planner, taking on some of those roles to get experience would only help you in your job. Like I've thought about that many times. Like maybe I should just shadow some of my vendor friends to see like what it's like in their shoes. Yeah. So that when I am like creating a timeline or like giving advice, it aligns with what works best for them too.
Should we start a like grown-ups internship program?
Oh my gosh, yes. That'd be so fun. Let's do that. Yeah.
I would intern for you. I'd totally come do some flowers someday. That'd be fun.
Just for fun. I think it'd be so great.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Was Floral always a part of it?
So flowers just like fell into my lap in 2018, 17, 18, I think. I had a bride who was doing like a very small, it was her second wedding, 10 people in the backyard. And she's like, hey, is there like any way you could just make me a bouquet? All these florists have minimums and I just need a bouquet for myself. So I'm not reaching that. She's like, I know you're artistic, so I feel like you could probably do it. I'm like, yeah, I can totally do that.
No problem.
This was 2018, you said?
Yeah, it was either 17 or 18. It feels,
okay.
I think it was 17, but I don't remember. So I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll like figure that out. So I go to the farmer's market to market flowers, where you can like buy flowers at like to public people. And it was actually a lot of fun. It kind of honed in on like that design, like interior design, like picking out colors and not patterns, but like textures and things in the floral. So I had like the best time picking things out. And then I designed it. I'm like, well, that like worked out great. Like that turned out shockingly well.
Yeah.
Like that bride still has her bouquet as her lock screen, which I think is so great.
That's super sweet.
So I'm like, well, maybe that was a fluke and it just like fell together. Yeah. So I'm going to try again because I really enjoyed it. So I had another bride that next year who I knew like her budget was really low. She probably wouldn't care if I messed it up. So I reached out to her. I'm like, hey, like I'm thinking about getting into this. How would you feel letting me practice on your wedding? Because she had like bridesmaids and extra centerpieces where the other one was just one bouquet.
Right.
She's like, yeah, that'd be great. Like I told her I would just charge her for the cost of the flowers. Sure. So I did that wedding and that turned out really well too. And I, again, still really enjoyed it. So I got to a point where I'm like, okay, I have to figure out how can I do both of these things, because like planning is very logistical, but floral is very artistic. And I feel like I have both of those things. So doing both kind of itches both of those scratches that I have. So then I took classes at Kohler because I'm like, I can't just tell people like I'm a florist now. I did two things.
Decided.
Yeah. So I'm like, I need to take some classes so I actually have some knowledge on what I'm doing. So I went for a year with them and I learned so much, like how to mix water with food so that your flowers last longer and how they should be cut and all of those like technical things that you learn in school. So I would advocate for school for that. Actually, I learned a lot from them.
I mean,
That's
that's
awesome.
kind of the similar thing where it's like you already had a little bit of the experience, so now
Yeah.
you're going back and learning like more of the technical aspect, which I
Yeah.
think can
Which
be
is really cool.
Yeah, interesting. And
Yeah.
I knew that Kohler and Dram had classes. I didn't realize it was like a full year program. That's
yeah,
really interesting.
You can do multiple years there. So one of the girls that works for me now, she's in class there
Cool.
and loves it. And they do a really good job.
Yeah, that's super cool.
And so you 100% of your business at first was like planning.
Mm-hmm.
Did you leave college? Sorry, did you
No.
leave college and just immediately start planning, or was there like a transition period?
So I luckily got a job right out of college. I was working at a place that just did ceremonies, and it was great at first, and then it changed ownership, and it wasn't so great. We had a lot of different opinions on how things should be run. So I ended up leaving that spot, which like I was so thankful to have a job because I graduated in 2008. So like the world was literally on fire. I'm like, well, at least I have a job. That's
Yeah,
great.
you got something.
Yeah. So I was there for 3 years, and then in that time got married, found out I was pregnant. During that pregnancy with Charlie, I was working just like a 9 to 5. Not for me. I hated it. I was actually selling tractor parts, if you can imagine.
Tractor
Tractor
parts?
parts. All right.
Like John
Plot
Deere?
twist.
Yeah, like all kinds of like random. I couldn't even tell you now like what it was, but
There was a
I
wheel
would-
in there. Probably a gear shift somewhere.
Yeah, no, my friend Mike owns the company, and he was very gracious, gave me a job. The fun thing is after I was there for like a couple months, they let me go on like not tour, but they would do like farm shows. And of course I was
Nice.
like one of like 4 girls
Right.
there.
You were like a novelty act. Yeah.
Yeah, and so it was fun like seeing like farm shows as an event kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that was like my interim job, and then being there for a couple of years, I just knew like I cannot have a desk job. Like this is not for
Yeah.
me. So I got pregnant with Charlie, and then while I was pregnant with him, I started like thinking about, do I want to go back working for somebody else, or do I want flexibility working for myself, knowing that I have a child on the way? So I actually launched my business in February of 2014, like right before I gave birth to Charlie. So I like to say like Charlie and I grew my business while I grew him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Cute.
Yeah.
So when you started adding floral to it, like how many events were you doing in like a year already?
At that point, I was probably doing like 15, 20 maybe.
Okay.
And then as soon as I add the flowers, it kind of just
That's what I was
skyrocketed
getting
from
at.
there.
Like, how much did that boost the business?
More than 50%.
Really?
Yeah, just
Okay.
having an extra service, one less person that people have to
Right.
book,
Yep.
less communicating with other people. People love
Yeah.
like convenience
Well,
and
and
like
I
a
used to
one-stop
recommend
shop.
you at Aria
Thank you.
because people are like, you can tell that they're just fed up, not fed up, but like they're just sick of like the 30 vendors that they have on their event.
Yeah.
They get a lot of decision fatigue too, and it's
And I'd be like, here's my top 4, and you were always in there or whatever. And then I think we worked a shitload together, so I think
Yeah.
it paid off. So,
yeah, thank you.
but like I think people really do like that like press the button once and you get kind of 2 things.
Yeah. Well, and even like things that my clients complain about now is when they get towards the end of the wedding or like the wedding planning process, everyone has their own form to fill out. So it's like, oh, I already filled this out with my DJ, and then we're asking the same questions, and then catering, and then the
Yep.
florist is asking. And so like being able to take away like 2 of those questionnaires for one person
Right.
is nice.
Yep.
So people, like I said, people love convenience. They obviously like my style because they're booking us. So for me, I tell our clients, like for me to be able to do both, it helps me do better at my job, because on days where I'm just the planner, I show up and I feel like I know nothing about the wedding other than like the logistical side. But if I can see that and the floral, the pretty side, I can see the whole day versus just half of the day.
Yeah, you're right. Like a photo booth will come in and be like, what's going on?
Yeah.
They like don't know all the details. Yeah,
Exactly.
that's actually a very valid point. I was going to say too, if we can scooch back for just a second, like you were talking about trying things on an event, because like you were like, the client probably won't care even if it sucks.
Like low stakes.
Yeah.
Like that's actually like super cool for people in the industry, because like we all kind of need that. That's how we innovate. That's how we grow and try things. So I thought that was like cool, and I just wanted to like either just touch on it like that, or if you have any further thoughts, go ahead and jump in. But I just think that's such an important point to make, is that like we need that client once in a while that's like, just run with it.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're
And-
always a breath of fresh air. We like to call them our unicorn bride. When they're like, just do whatever you want to do, and have like outside of the box ideas. Because with weddings, it's usually like here's the flow. Here's a general, like, we have to stay in this small box to please everybody.
Yeah.
And so when you get that client that's like, I want to see what you can do kind of thing like that.
Like they fully trust you enough to give you that like open-ended, like just be creative and make it cool.
Yeah. It honestly like,
and you
kind
do
of sets
more.
the bar for me. Like, okay, how can I make this like even better
That's what I
than
was
what
going
they
to say.
can think of?
If you're actually a client and you do that, you actually might get more out of the service that you've hired on. I think like people will go above and beyond when you give them a little bit of that creative
when we can get
freedom.
excited about something.
And you get excited about it. Yeah.
Well, and as long as you can be like, show me what you can do and, you know, surprise me or do what you want to do, but then also like take a step back and like not micromanage that after people. Sometimes people will like say that and then
and then they're like,
I'm like, just kidding, I take that back.
Yeah, they're like,
I don't actually
I
want
hate
that.
everything about it. So if you could just like reverse that all and start over, that'd be great. It's like I need a little direction to make sure that we're on the same page and that like you're actually okay with me running with this idea. So sometimes it's like a personality thing, I think, but it definitely like pushes your boundaries and helps you grow. And also it's nice when you can do it in a like low stakes way where it's not like you didn't jump in doing like 40 head table, you know, like there's not 40 head tables, but 40 tables. And, you know, something massive like that is starting with like a bouquet and kind of growing from there. And then like recognizing when you needed like a little bit more education before you did something catastrophic, like, you know, put 40 centerpieces in a hot car, you know, in July.
Well, that's like the thing when I see on like the Facebook sites, like the Minnesota Brides, whatever. And they're like, I just planned my own wedding, so now I'm going to be a wedding planner. I'm like, great.
Red flag.
But however, you're going to have to do more to get to where you want to be. You can't just like wake up one day and become a planner.
Well, and that's why I brought it up right away that you kind of like decided it during schools, because I hear the story so many times. We're like, yeah, I planned my wedding, and that's kind of how I got into it. And you hear that, and some of them are successful, and obviously, like we work in some of the buildings and stuff that we work in, like we get to see some of those people that actually made it. But I'm sure there's a lot that never made it or whatever that planned maybe several weddings after their own, but not all of them probably ended successfully.
Yeah, well, it's always fun when you're the bride.
Yeah,
I suppose.
And you get to make all the decisions, right? It's like another thing to like have to put together somebody else's vision, and also just like, you can be at your own wedding for 18 hours a day because it's your wedding and you want to be there, but like if you're not getting paid enough to be there for 18 hours and on your feet for 18 hours, that's a whole different ball game. And I feel like there's a lot of room for people to burn out really quickly in something like that, where they're like, oh, I had no idea. I did not anticipate that like this would be such a long day, or I'd be so exhausted by it, or there would be a lot of people like yelling at me potentially.
A lot of emotions.
Yes. I think that there is a really fun mix of money and emotions and familial connections when it comes to weddings that like can be so joyous and so amazing and such a powder keg, like just waiting to explode sometimes. So it's definitely dicey.
Yes. Which I like, to your point, like some people have like planned their own wedding and then have become
successful and stuff
in that way.
Yeah.
But I think you have to be willing to put in the work. You don't just like wake up and be successful, and like get some education on it, like get to know vendors and like kind of like our internship that we're going to start, like work for other people so you can learn
in all our free time.
Or like shadow other planners to see what it's actually like.
Right.
Because like I said, when you are the bride, it's so much fun because you get to decide, everyone's doting on you, like you're the bride, but now you're working for another bride and it's not as fun.
Right. I mean, I think bare minimum, even if like your starting point is your own wedding, like working for another planner should be bare minimum. And there's always people looking for extra hands, extra help. Like it's always necessary. There's no shortage of that, and it can give you some like really great experience and also different angles on things that like you maybe would not have expected, that this is how we do things here. Because if you got married in a barn in, you know, the rural Minnesota, you're
in Preston,
Minnesota, where I'm doing a wedding in a few weeks. It's a very different experience from top to bottom than doing it at Hutton House or somewhere like that, right? So, you know, if your only real main experience is your own wedding, like seeing it in different places, different planners, different vendors, like it's all different.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Earlier you dropped the word burnout. I don't even know what you were saying, but I wrote it down because I think like we all experience that burnout during our careers, like in the industry. What's a time that you recall that like you, and maybe it's right now, what burns you out? Like, what is it about the industry that can burn you out? And like, what's a time that like was like the biggest like burnout for you?
I mean, I feel like the obvious thing to say is COVID.
Yeah.
But not probably for the reasons you think. I think the reason why COVID was so hard for me was that it turned more from relational, which is like what I love about my job. Like I love learning about my clients and becoming a friend and someone that they can rely on. It went away from that to financial. Like I'm going to sue you if you're not giving me my money back.
Right.
And I hate that. Like I'm not in this job. I don't feel like any of us are in this job for the money. Like we love the people. We love serving others.
I take that back. That's not where I thought you were going for. I am here for the money.
Yeah, I was like, yes. I want to be paid.
Backtrack that.
Yeah.
I want to get paid.
Yes, we want money.
I'm not here solely for the money, and I don't expect to become a millionaire doing it.
Yeah.
But I was like, I said that too emphatically. Yes. Let me just backtrack.
Yeah. No. I do want to get paid. Thank you.
Yeah. This is a profession. We are
That's
professionals.
why you do it.
Take this seriously. Yes.
Yeah.
Continue. Sorry.
So that for me was the hard part. Like I'm here because I want to serve you, and that just made it so ugly. Like it took away like our hearts. I feel like for this job. So that year was hard for me, and then honestly I like blacked out 2021 through 2023.
Fair.
And then at the end of last year, I feel like is when I really felt it because we just like. The doors open and then it was all the events
constant since COVID and all the like rescheduled everything. So was it like doubled up during 2021, I guess,
had
when it
69 weddings that was supposed to happen in 2020, and then the following year we did 120.
Oh shit. So like
so it was just like
double.
Insane, and that's how it was for like the next 2 years was just like so many weddings because you had all these postponements, but you also have to like keep taking on new clients because you already had these deposits like 2 years ago.
Yeah, you're not making extra money on
been
this.
Spent. And like on the flower side, like I had already sent out all these estimates, and unfortunately at the time, I do now. At the time, I didn't have any like COVID clause on like I take back that estimate. Now here's your new price. So a lot of those weddings I was basically doing at cost because the flowers went so high.
Yeah, the cost of it went insane, and in general, everything was just more expensive. Yeah.
There was the one event, I'm not going to name names, but we worked an event at Aria during COVID, and you had ordered all the flowers.
Yes.
And it was, I think, was the wedding supposed to be.
Yeah.
And we might have to like edit that out so it's not too recognizable.
There was a day in March.
Well, they know who they are, and they should be ashamed of themselves. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
No, but
the statute of limitations is passed.
It was. So, because my birthday's on the 12th, I played basketball with the homies that night, and literally the next day, everything canceled, and it was like all of the NCAA things that were going on that year in town, all of it canceled, and then it was like another day later, and all of a sudden, the wedding that we were supposed to do at Aria was like, we can't do it now.
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah.
And we didn't know. No one knew what the F was going on.
Well, and we went through every stage together because it was like 100 people. I'm like, okay, that's doable. And then it was like 50 people. I'm like, okay, still fine. And then when it was 10, like there's no way.
It was down to 10 actually? I can't remember that.
Yeah, because we did her wedding in my studio. Because I'm like, we can use my studio to have this 10-person wedding.
Oh, that's right. Because then we ended up redoing it a year later.
Yeah, it ended up being a whole different kind of event.
Yep. Yeah, different circumstances for sure. Yeah, but what I was getting at is like you had paid for all of the floral for probably 20 tables or something like that, and I think you had to charge her for that because like you were trying, or I don't know how it went, but like I know there was that chat between you and I where it was like, damn, I paid for all these flowers.
Yeah,
you can't just eat that cost.
Yeah,
it's one thing to eat labor or like your own labor, right? Not other people, like your staff, but
the flowers were like literally already on their way to me.
Yeah, cost of goods, right?
Which is amazing that they were even on their way because like COVID and shit. But yeah, it was. Yeah, it's like such a massive amount of money and undertaking, and that's the thing I think so many people like don't realize is like all the things that were in motion leading into COVID, and then it was like boom, pull the plug. hundreds and thousands, and even just locally, like thousands, like maybe even 100,000. I don't know.
Easily.
Lots of weddings.
Yeah.
Did that were all screwed.
Oh, yeah. Did you have a force majeure clause in your contract before that? Like an act of God? Do you now?
I do. I have like every single
everyone?
contract
Yes.
clause you can think of. It was
Right.
like probably like a 2-page thing. It's now 5.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. As it should be, right? Which,
Yeah.
I mean, we don't want it to be like overly litigious feeling or anything like that, but you have to be careful and, protect
Yeah.
yourself. I think that a lot of people in the industry, well, it's also difficult because like legally our industry is a really specific niche, right? And so like legally standing, like not every lawyer understands like the ins and outs of like kind of things that we need to protect ourselves in the industry. But now I think we're all so much more aware of what we need to protect ourselves against, which is good, and we should. But definitely I think everyone in the event industry reads their contracts a lot more closely now.
Well, I think like for that specific event, like it was all new. Like we had no idea what was happening. Like we just felt so bad for our clients. So we're like wanting to do whatever we possibly could to like make this stuff happen for them. And so I feel like because as event professionals, I feel like we just care for people. It's why we do this.
Right.
We kind of like overlooked some of our contract clauses. Like, oh, like we want to help them.
And if you never had an issue, it was like, oh, there's never been an issue. I think,
Contracts were more just vibes before.
I actually think that's like a super good point too, is like, as we do events in the industry, it's like you have to build out your contracts kind of every time something happens and you're like, fuck, I should have protected myself on that. You should not just like make a contract and that's it. Like you need to update that thing routinely. Yeah.
It's definitely a living document.
Yeah.
It definitely is changing over time. And also like sometimes, I mean, usually when we write contracts, and we are not lawyers, but we will help people write contracts just because we understand like the liability that we're up against on certain things. But you have to have like different language for different scenarios. And if it's corporate versus weddings and things like that, like it can be very different depending on the client. So having some forethought into like how you can be adaptable with that can save you a lot of grief on the end of that too. So
I think every event is really a learning opportunity, not only for like how should I change the wording here or like clauses to add, but also like I've been doing this now for 10 years. I learned something new at every event because the world continues to change and trends change and vendor friends change.
Yeah.
So you always have the opportunity to learn.
I think that I might have learned or may have heard this when I was at DCTC from Rosalie, that was like, what's the number one most important thing you could have when planning an event? History. And it's hard to have that when it comes to weddings because like those two people have not had a wedding in this location with these people and this scenario ever before. So you have the historical knowledge that you carry from doing events, and you have some historical knowledge from like weddings they've attended or been part of, but there's no history of like all these X factors here. Like you can have that with corporate things or nonprofit and build from year to year, but weddings don't have that same level of like building from year to year that you get with some of those other kinds of things.
Your clients don't keep coming back.
Right.
You don't want them to.
I mean,
unless they have babies and they want me to hold them, then I will.
I did have one time when I was at a location where a couple booked the venue and then they broke up, and then the bride came back and booked it again with someone else.
Oh, I've had that. Not the same venue, but they came back and booked me.
Booked you?
And I'm like, okay, I have to make sure all of the names are changed on all of these things so I don't call them the wrong name.
Was it a different friend list?
Half at least.
I know, probably.
Actually, in this
Hopefully.
one it wasn't complete because the groom was like her best friend was going to be like, I think like her man of honor or something like that, and then they split up and then they got together, and I was like,
Yay.
oh, that's very sweet. And
That worked out.
You really like it here, so cool. Let's do this times 2.
Did they keep their money in it, or they rebooked it after the funds became not available anymore?
So long ago. I have no idea. Who knows?
This episode is sponsored by IMAV, an innovative and leading audiovisual company based in the Twin Cities. If you're looking to elevate your next event, all you have to do is reach out to the team at IMAV. They'll put together a package that not only fits your budget, but takes your event to the next level. IMAV strives to not only be a resource, but an asset to the success of your event. Whether you need video, audio, or lighting, the professionals at IMAV can execute and run your meeting or event flawlessly. Their team is a dream to work with and always deliver a final product that leaves guests blown away. Find them online at imav.pro. Use promo code EVENTLIFE when you contact them to receive 30% off all equipment rentals for your first event. Again, go to imav.pro to lock in the best audiovisual vendor for your next event. So like, what keeps you innovative nowadays? Like, what are the things that, because like, I know personally from working in weddings, some of them can be kind of like cookie cutter, you know, and I think that works for a lot of people, and they're like, we're not doing like something crazy, so it's like it kind of fits within like a wheelhouse. So it's like, to us it's cookie cutter, to them it's their first time ever doing it, so it's super special to them. But like, you see it all the time, so like, what keeps you like fresh and innovative and like just creative?
I would say doing non-wedding things. So like going to other events that have nothing to do with weddings, going to new restaurants, because everyone has like fun things now. Only because, like you said, like weddings can get to be the same. Like you see this every single time.
Well, at least like the flow usually, unless you're doing like an East Coast style or something like that.
Even that, it's like after you've done it a few times, you're like, not. I mean, it all has the same framework, right?
Yeah.
It's what you do within that framework that is like what differentiates it. But for a while, I feel like we have bucked this trend. Thank God. Every wedding was like, my colors are blush and cream, and like. And a crew, like, so white, and white. Okay, cool. Yeah, and like greenery, groundbreaking.
Yeah.
Let's do this, you know. And
Never done that before. Cool.
It's beautiful, and it is timeless, and it is classic, and everything about it is fantastic. But when you do 6 of them in a row, it's like, who are you again?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so it's been really fun to see like how much more colorful things have gotten. People are like leaning into that a lot more recently, which I think is awesome.
Yeah. Well, I think part of it too is just educating people. Like, people will come to me like, oh, I saw this on Pinterest. I'm like, that's great, but did you know that there's other things that aren't on Pinterest?
Yep.
Which, I mean, people just go to Pinterest because it's so visual, but there's so many other places that you can pull visual inspiration from that isn't Pinterest.
like where?
Like museums, books. I love like garden books. I have an issue with buying them because they just sit in my house. Cookbooks, even, like, I love thumbing through like a well photographed cookbook. Things like that aren't just like copy and paste like the same things that you see on Pinterest. Like, I will send like my flower form to people and I get their Pinterest boards and it's like the same 7 images depending on what the color palette is. I'm like, oh, I just saw this 2 hours ago on somebody else's.
Right.
So I think it's easy to like see something on there and just like, oh, okay, this is what they want. Where I can be like, hey, this is like a great idea, but how do you feel about doing this that like sort of resonates with this, but in a totally different way?
Yeah.
And I shouldn't say hate. I get it a lot when people are like, oh, I saw this on Pinterest, or I saw this at my friend's wedding. I'm like, well, if you saw that at your friend's wedding, like,
why would you want
do you want to do it at yours?
Yeah.
Like, let's make your wedding something different. Like, we can do something similar to like the same experience, but it doesn't have to be this exact same path.
Right.
Sure.
And like isolating what it is about it. Did you like the colors?
Yeah.
Did you like the form of it? Did you like the density of it? Did you like the airiness of it? Like all those different things. I have a similar obsession with interior design books.
Yes.
I have a large collection of them. And like, there's things on Pinterest that you can use as inspiration that are not just floral pictures, right? It's like, I love the way this living room makes me feel, you know, or the way that this event picture feels. I don't need all the same bells and whistles from it, but I would like the vibe of this, you know, and like, how do I recreate that in a way that's different and unique? Because if you're seeing it on Pinterest, it means someone else has already done it.
Right.
And like, to be fair, maybe we care more about it being different and unique than other people do. Some people are like, I want it to be classic and timeless, and I want it to be something that feels...
Or for them, they haven't seen it before, where we saw it all last year.
Exactly. 1,000 times.
Like the pampas grass trend. Like, okay, this is new and inventive for you, but not for me.
Yeah, and it was cool when you first started doing it. It's just like anything I think that we get a little like jaded about sometimes, where it's like, oh, the first time I saw someone do pampas grass, I was like, I fucking love that. That's so great. And then seeing it in different ways was really fun. And then after a while, you're just like, got it. Like, unless you can come up with a way that makes me like, you know, really blows me out of the water, like...
Yeah.
Also, it leaves like little
pieces
of fluff everywhere.
So messy.
Well,
I hate
it. Like, you ladies are way better at it than like someone like me, because like I can't do the thing where I'm like pretending to be super excited about it. Even when it's pretty cool, I'm just like, that's cool. Cool. I might take a picture of it. But like, you guys like I've seen you like work with brides and stuff too, where you're like, oh my God, this is amazing. And it was great and stuff, you know what I mean? But like, it's one of those things where we've seen it a million times too. So it's like, it's not as cool, but like you still have to pretend, or like not even pretend, but like you still have to like,
you have to muster the enthusiasm.
You have to, you have to muster the enthusiasm. That's a really good way to put it. But.
Yeah. And it's like, I mean, what you were saying about like, this is, the only time that they do it. We've done it 6 weekends in a row or whatever. Mm-hmm. And this is like a similar thing with just like, even like conflict stuff. It's like, just because I've had this conversation 20 times, these folks have only had it once. This is our first time having it. So I have to remind myself that I have to start here and not here. Yeah. Because like, it's pretty easy for me to jump from here to here if I've already had this conversation 20 times. And like, I have been checked by actually like a catering driver one time because I was like, I literally. That's what
it takes. Out of all the people, it was a driver. That's
like,
great.
I am humble. I can be humble, not always, but when I'm wrong, I'm wrong, right? And I was upset because it's like the parking lot at this place is always an issue. It's always a challenge. We're like trying to be respectful of like other people parking there. We're trying to be respectful of the handicap parking and like, you know, and like, I get it. You're coming, you're just dropping things off. It'll only be a couple minutes, but like in those couple minutes, I'm getting phone calls and getting yelled at and whatever. And after you've said that 40 gajillion times or so, you just
like the annoyance comes through in your voice.
Oh, I was raging. Like, I won't even pretend like I wasn't. Yeah. I was like, the fuck is wrong with you? Like, why are you blocking these spots? Like, I can't believe that I have to say this again. And he literally looked at me and he said, we've never met before. And I was like, oh, you right. My bad. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I mean, that is a thing. It's like, even event managing, like you're asking and getting asked the same 50 questions every week.
Where's the bathroom?
And it's hard. It's hard to keep kind of cool about it, but like we have to like remember that it's like they don't know, so we have to keep our cool.
It's like their one day that they have.
Right.
Yeah.
And a lot of your job is educating people. Yes. So much of it is because it feels like, I feel like you, myself, probably Esteban, I could plan a wedding in like 3 weeks.
Yes.
You know, like we could, yep. You're going to get married in 2 weeks. I got you. Like, no problem. As long as the vendors are available and we got a space, like, let's rock and roll. We can do that. Because, like, working on a timeline and working through song selections and working through all those things is, like, second nature. But when you're talking through them for the first time and everything that you're like, but I know where you're going to land when this whole conversation is done. Yeah. 9 times out of 10, I know exactly where you're going to land, but you have to work through the process to get to that point. Yeah. And that's very understandable. So like your job is so heavily on educating them about why that works this way and why that doesn't work that way.
Right. Yeah. Education, therapy. I feel like both of those things are me. I have a client right now who, like, every time I talk to her, she's like, am I behind? Am I behind? And I'm like, client, if you're behind, I tell you, like, I'm not panicking because you're fine. Like, we will get through this. It'll be okay.
Well, that's kind of your job too, is like you absorb any kind of sort of panic and let them think everything is peaches and cream or whatever.
Which honestly, like, having experience in it now, I know at the end of the day, everything is going to be fine. So I think that helps. Like, I've been doing it for enough time. Like, it's fine. But for them, it is like their one day. And if it's not perfect, it's not perfect. So yeah, we definitely wear a lot of hats, which is, it's fine. Like, I feel like becoming a mom has helped me stay calm in a lot of scenarios that maybe other people wouldn't be, just because your kids do like crazy shit all the time. You're like, how did you...
And you're like way more comfortable with bodily fluids, probably.
Yeah, and like you get touched all the time. So you're like, it's fine, you know.
Still not gonna do it.
Yeah. No, I feel like that compassion part you kind of like get from being a parent, and then just knowing like I trust my vendors. They're gonna show up. That was like the biggest thing. Like when I first started, I didn't know anybody, and so I was just like high stress all the time. Like, what if they don't show up? And I have to like call them all the time. Or now, like I'll not really anymore, but like I would see people on the vendors like, oh.
They got this.
Like, I don't even have to probably email them. Like, I know
you're
they're
like,
show up.
I send you the event order and we're done. Right? That's it.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
So that is important to me. Like, promoting other vendors when people ask. Because I'm like, not only are they amazing, I want to work with them. It's going to make your whole day better.
It's a team. It becomes a team.
Exactly.
There's so many times where I've, like, people have literally asked me, like, they literally booked Aria and then they're like, what vendors are cool or which ones, and I literally will be like, here's floral and here's a floral planner. They're all, and I'll like 2 or 3 from each category and like all the way DJ and everything. And sometimes clients would literally select one of everything you've selected, and literally they're so stoked because they're like, everyone's worked together already. Yeah, we all know each other.
You're like, yeah, it's a dream team.
You get a dream team, and it's like such a cool thing.
Yeah. I like to keep mine public on the website. Kevin's like, can you just like email your preferred vendor list? I'm like, it's online for everyone to see because it's not a secret. Like I want these people.
I was gonna say you might be one of the only people. Well, not. I think a lot of people are doing that now, but like planners that has kind of like a preferred vendor list. I don't always see that. I think
there can be some gatekeeping sometimes from the planner side of things of like, these are my secret people, which I think there's pros and cons to that. I don't necessarily think it's like the wrong thing to do. And I can see how, I guess, in some...
Well, it's like trusted people. Yeah. Like they've earned the trust, you're on the list. Boom.
Yeah. And it's like, I could see some like, in some alternate reality where like if somebody really wanted to get around working with you somehow, they could go on your thing and be like, let me just steal all her people. But it's like, they don't have the same relationship. So it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. And that all is information that's like, in the world. Right. Like if you're paying attention and you're working that hard at it, like you could go onto any venue's Instagram and be like, do some data collection and be like, well, so-and-so has worked here 15 times in the last year. Yeah, it wouldn't be that hard to find all that information. It's just like, I think that there is some gatekeeping of that of like, these are my people and I don't necessarily want the whole world to know who it is. I don't often do vendors on websites as a venue because it can be a little political sometimes.
Yeah. Oh, I've definitely experienced that. Yeah.
Have you?
Yeah. I mean, even at Aria, because like you guys have probably started the list before I was there.
Yeah, but it wasn't public till after I left.
Okay.
Because actually I like years after I left, someone called me to be like, do you know why they took me off the list? And I was like,
I know exactly who it was. A photographer.
We won't talk about it. But it was like, I was like, no, I don't work there. But I was like, here's what I can imagine might have happened, right? Because I like have enough general idea of the industry and of like where things are and like where they were in the industry. And we had like a really frank conversation about it. And I was like, I really don't have any insider information aside from just like some assumptions about some things. And I think that their thought was like their questioning of it was valid because they just wanted to know if they'd done something wrong to a certain extent. But I was like, I don't think it's about that. I think it's just that like changing demographics and like people changing the scope of what they do.
Yeah, that was 100% it.
Yeah.
Let me answer that question.
So it can be political. And so I often, and also sometimes like, because as a venue you can get such like a wide range of clients, and there's a ton of vendors out there that I like to, when possible, like customize it a little bit more. Be like, I think that this like florist is a little more your vibe. Like, you're kind of like a little bit of a funkier client. Like, I think you'll resonate with this person a little bit more, and like try these folks, or like, what's the style you're looking for?
I gotta say, I was in the meeting, but it was not my decision. Just so we're clear, I gotta get that in there.
If those people have gleaned from this conversation,
exactly.
I mean, I didn't agree with the decision. I will be honest. Like, I was like,
here's part of the decision though too, just so people do understand. At that time, it was based off of who was there the most.
Yes. That's one of the things that I pointed out.
And like good relationship standing, which that they obviously were still in good relationship standing. But I think some of their work scope had altered.
I think like the number of events they were doing.
And again, it was not me. All right, cool.
Yeah. I think that they were doing fewer events, like they were. Yeah.
What are you looking at me like that for?
No, I'm just paying attention to what I may need to cut or may not.
Yeah, right.
Ever since you first said
very
cut it, I was like,
controversial this time, but and I think that like it wasn't. It's not personal most of the time. And I mean, honestly, if you're like a venue or anyone who's like cutting somebody off your list without having a conversation, like be brave and tell them why. But it's also easier said than done, right?
Yeah. So I would say like when I first got started, like year 5, for me, it was like an honor. I mean, it still is.
Yeah.
Like, obviously. But it was like something to work towards. Like I remember... I don't even Styled for Good when it was at Aria.
Yeah.
What year was that? 2017?
Maybe.
idea.
18. I was like a baby planner.
17 probably sounds about right.
I think it was. And I remember going, I like brought my best friend to like be my +1 to this event. And I remember going and like walking through there and be like, I can't wait till I have my first event here.
Oh.
And now thinking like, you're one of my really good friends.
Right. And you did probably tons and tons there.
Yes. Right. And then with you, like when I had you and Castine out right after COVID about doing some venue stuff, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm meeting with Jessica Barrett. Like,
it's so funny because like I was like, I know her, I have heard of her, but I don't think we'd ever worked together.
No, I don't think we've even ever met. Like I
don't think so
was
either.
at Star Awards one year.
Okay.
When you were doing like the tattoo table. Like the not actual tattoos, like the temporary ones.
Oh yeah, okay.
It was.
I know. I just got one actually.
I think it was Jason's year.
Oh, okay.
At the depot.
Yeah.
It was that year.
Okay, that tracks.
And I remember you were there. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna be talking to her. Like this is so nerve wracking. And now, like, I consider you to be a good friend too.
Yeah.
So for me, like, being on these lists is more of like you've accomplished this thing.
Yeah. I mean, there's like the political nature too of getting on those lists that I know like there's a lot of different venues that do things differently and different planners that do the same thing as planners. Like some people have different mindsets. Some people are like, you have to pay us to be on this list, right?
Which I don't buy into. That is,
I agree with that.
I have a lot of thoughts.
I have some ethical concerns with that.
Can we even talk about like what is the appropriate way to try to get on somebody's list?
Okay, well, I guess if we back it up, like the point of being on the list, right, is that then hopefully you'll get promoted, right? And my feeling towards having a list that's public in any way like that is that it should be people that will represent your venue well, right? Like what's the point otherwise? So they should be people that are vetted, which means like they should have worked there, right?
Yep.
And I have caught some grief over the years for that. Usually like somebody drunk in an event will be like, I want to be on your list and you won't let me be because I haven't worked there. But how am I supposed to work there if I can't get on your list?
Well, and then part of that is like we have different clientele.
Yeah. And also like, I mean, if you were to approach me and send me an email and be, it's like, I know I'm not on your list, but I'd love to work there someday. Please feel free to refer me to clients, like, you know, or like I'd be happy to do a discounted rate for clients so that I had an opportunity to work there. I'm not pushing people. Should
even
price.
Photographers like, hey, can I do a styled shoot there? And then
100%.
we'll give you photos and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And this and that.
There's
and
1,000 ways to get in there and like get your foot in the door and like, you know, or even just be like, can I take you out for coffee? Like, yeah, let's meet, let's hang out. Let's like get to know each other because it'll give me a sense at least that like we vibe and that we want to work on the same team. It's not about like, I don't pick vendors to be on my list because they're my friends. Right. They become my friends because they're good vendors and are on the list and they're here a lot. Like, I'm not going to be friends with somebody that makes me look bad at an event. I'm not going to be friends with somebody that I think does like, you know, dicey things or unethical things. So it's usually, I have also gotten flack in the past for like only referring my friends. And I was like, oh, no, you have it backwards. They are my friends.
They're my friends now.
Because I referred them. Because they did a good job. And then we ended up spending every Saturday of our life together. And by proxy, like as a result, we now hang out outside of work too, you know?
That's ours. Like our rule is that you have to have worked with us, people to be honest, not just like who we think is like the most popular person. Yeah. It's people that we've worked with. We know they're going to respond to our emails. They're going to show up. They're not going to ghost us.
Yeah, and it's not like we're going to somebody else's list and just like picking out, yeah, I see they're on everybody's list. It's just
some
like
people do that.
Some of them do. Some of them do reference that, but
it's not
I think they're on that list because they kind of have taken that approach with all of either the venues or whatever vendors sites they're on, like the friendship thing, and they've gotten around friendly. And,
I mean, and we're a relationship-based industry.
Yeah, exactly.
And we're about forming connections and making, you know, people's events happen. And like, that's all about connection and community. So like, it makes perfect sense that we are an industry that is strongly community-based. Yeah. And I think, in particular, I think Minneapolis-St. Paul is extremely community-based. Oh, yeah. More so than any industry or any like region that I've ever seen. I'm sure there are others that are very lovely. I just haven't been there yet. But you can invite me there anytime.
Met those people.
Yeah. So we have a really strong community base, like a really strong industry, like people connections are very strong. And like, I'm super grateful for that all the time. And I'm really glad that I got a chance to meet you. Aww. And I do remember when I was we were going to meet with you to talk about a potential venue once upon a time. And I was like, have we met? Do I know her? I like had to Google because I was like, I know your name. I've seen you around. We've probably been around each other. Yeah. But I was like, but have we worked together? And I kind of have event amnesia sometimes where I'm just like, yeah, I've done something with them. It's like parasocial relationships or something, you know, like I've seen you at Aria enough times, right?
Yeah, that's how I met you too, is like at Aria.
Yeah.
You're doing floral and stuff, and I don't even, like, you were just genuinely nice and all, you know, all that stuff. And then there was like all those times where you're like, I have back-to-back weekends there, where you literally were there sometimes like 3 or 4 times a month, and it's just like, okay, I guess we're becoming friends.
Yeah,
now,
right. So you better be at this point, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I think people underestimate like how much time we spend with each other when we are working in similar markets and with similar clients. It's like, oh no, like I see them more than I see my family on the regular. I also wanted to ask about, so when we first met we came out to Osseo, right?
Yep.
Osseo. I was like, where did we meet again? Because you had a studio space there and you were thinking about taking over another space and potentially doing a venue.
Yes.
So that was our first conversation. And then,
I didn't hear that.
well, that leads into your other endeavor,
Yes.
Annabelle House.
Yes.
Or Animal House.
Or Animal House, whatever you're feeling.
Yeah.
Okay, so I met you because in 2020, well, I think it was actually like right before. So I had signed a lease on my studio at the time, March 1st, 2020. So before like everything happened.
Oh man, so many people have had a similar-ish
Say
story.
that again. I missed it because I was trying to tell you to talk into the mic.
So I signed the lease for a studio space in Osseo, March 1st, 2020, because everything was like looking up. So it's time to move into like
unless that silly COVID things gets a little crazy.
Yeah,
I've had that conversation too.
Yeah, so I signed for that, which hindsight was great. Like I had a spot that I could go and like be alone and not home with all these people at the time. So there was a space down the road that we were looking at purchasing to turn into a venue, very similar to the place in Delwood. What's the place?
The Seven Vines Vineyard?
No, Adam is there all the time. He lives out there. Where's Adam?
Is it a dive bar?
No,
I'm
he lives
confused.
in Delano.
Delano, that place. The Jerome. There you go. The Jerome.
Oh, yeah.
So like inside, like another
brick and
existing...
timber, inside like kind of
And
a
that's
storefront.
Yes.
Adam Wells from Foes.
Those.
Plug that in.
Yeah.
Yep. Hey, buddy.
I assumed we were talking about a dive bar in Delano.
100%. I was like, what dive are we talking about? Because I drive through there on the way to like my mom's house when I go there once in a while.
Yeah.
And,
so like that feel where it was like a venue inside of a bigger building.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
on like a Main Street storefront kind of vibe. Yeah.
Basically. So I remember, I even think
I never went there.
No, you didn't go there, but I feel like I was talking to you and you were the one like referred me like, hey, you should talk to Jessica.
Thanks.
I think it was somebody. I was telling somebody about it and they were like, you should talk to Jessica because that's what they do.
I'll take the credit.
I'm almost positive it was you, but it was long time ago.
Well, yeah, maybe. Because I did know you were doing
Yeah, it's
consulting
very possible.
stuff.
Yeah. Or maybe it was Adam.
Could
It
be
could have
Adam.
been Adam,
It
too.
definitely
Maybe
could have been Adam.
Maybe it was Adam.
Because I
actually.
had just left.
Sorry, I take the credit. Give it to Adam. Another plug for
rescinded.
Adam.
I had just left Machine Shop December of 2019 to start my own business in the event industry, which was fabulous timing.
Yay.
So I have no regrets about that.
Yeah.
A few regrets. But so yeah, we had just sort of like kicked off like not long before that. So that would make sense.
So he referred me to you. I had you guys come out and look kind of like in the windows. I didn't own it, so like, we're like peeking
we
through.
did just like, creep in the windows a little bit, like which we do sometimes if people want us to come look at something. So yeah.
So we had basically everything ready to go. I think you guys actually told me like not to do it.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah.
I do remember that so there's a lot of times when we consult with people and I'm like, I don't think that it's viable. And we call it now our discovery phase. We have a word for it now as opposed to before when we're like, let's just see if this shit works. I don't know. And we were like, I don't know.
Yeah. And I feel like when people tell me no, I'm like, let me see how I can prove you wrong kind of thing. So
Fair.
I was like, meh, I'm going to keep doing this. It's like we had the investor and everything ready to go. And then when it got time to like actually like sign contracts and things, it kind of all fell through. Which again, looking back, was probably great. But inside this event venue, we were gonna have the space, but then also a coffee shop in the bottom that like wedding party could come and get coffee, the community could come and get coffee. So that was part of that plan.
Gotcha.
And then the venue side of it fell through, and I was like, but I still want to do the coffee shop because we don't have one here in Osseo.
Right.
We have a Caribou like across the busy highway that people have to like run across, not die. So I'm like, how can I still do that part of it? So 2 weeks after everything fell through, the business that was next to where my studio was, they like moved out in the middle of the night, like super sketch. I'm like, great, I'm gonna take this space and then I'll use my old studio to turn that into the coffee shop. So it was honestly like one weekend that I like put the business plan together, came up with the logo, the name. Obviously, it was named after my grandma. That was like a no question. Like we knew right away that was going to be the name of it. And like the nice thing was during COVID, so I was literally only postponing weddings, and that was it. So it was like a fun outlet. Oh yeah, like all this like stress over here. I'm like, but I have this nice thing to look forward to. So it's become a really fun endeavor. A lot of stress at times, just because it is a business. All businesses are stressful, but it's another creative outlet that isn't weddings. Like I get to decide what we're doing here. I'm not working for somebody else. Like I get to pick the flight flavors this month and the theme of it and what that's going to look like. So it's definitely different. Obviously, it's still customer service and being a part of a community. But it's
consumer
really fun.
goods still.
Yeah.
I've driven past it many times. I have not
You've not
made
been
it,
there
but
still?
well, luckily you delivered some
I
fresh
do.
to us over at Aria
I brought you lots
a couple
of coffee.
years ago. Already.
Yeah.
That's how I get you in.
Oh, and at Star Awards, you brought in like some of the stuff you made. So I've tried it, and it's all great.
Thank you.
It's all very good.
Yeah.
I do need to come in sometime and do one of those flights. I have had
the
coffee
flights
there, but
look
I haven't
cool.
come in to do a flight yet, which is just like what my normal morning coffee routine looks like, which is like I had like 4 in front of me this morning. So,
all the different drinks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All coffee though.
Yeah.
Yeah, coffee's a must.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you love the coffee, so.
I do. I've been trying really hard to not drink as much now that my studio has moved out of so coffee shop was here and then my studio was here. In January we moved, so now the coffee shop has expanded. So now that I'm not like directly next door, it's helped
Cut
not
back
have
a
like
little
4 a
bit.
day.
Yeah.
'Cause it'd just be so convenient. Like, oh, I guess I need another coffee.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to drink tea in the afternoon because I just love hot drinks. Like I can drink a hot coffee in the middle of July and be perfectly happy. So I've been trying to drink a lot more tea. Julia has helped entertain that craving because she's a tea girl.
Is it caffeine-free tea?
Yes, there is caffeine-free tea.
Are you drinking caffeine-free tea?
Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
I mean, it exists.
Depends on the day.
There's just like a little bit of caffeine in green tea.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or like a London Fog where it's still kind of creamy.
Yeah, I'm still trying to convince myself decide if I like coffee flavor.
I mean, I
drink
have like
every single
But
day.
you don't like the flavor of it?
I think I do. I don't know.
Or
Do
you
you
like the like
drink
pumps of
it
syrup?
black?
Yeah, like
I drink it straight black.
oh,
I don't do
well,
that.
would also
Darker the better.
That also, I drink black coffee too. I really do enjoy it, but it also depends on what type of coffee you're drinking, how much water to coffee ratio there is. It like
sludge.
Oh,
Yeah,
we're
it
having
can
like
change.
coffee talk now.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go.
We
It can change.
transitioned.
Yeah.
Sorry, totally.
No, love it.
Totally took over.
Yeah, that's
My
okay.
bad.
That's okay. That's great.
But yeah, no, that's something I noticed like literally every single day with my personal coffee. And my wife's grandmother, we spent time with her, and she's just like, she couldn't make coffee for herself, but now but we were there, so we would make coffee for her while we were visiting. And she told me one day that she was just like, yeah, so this is how you make it, but leave a little bit of water in the actual
Craft.
In the pot.
in the pot. So when it pours in, it dilutes it a little bit because it's not too strong, and that changes the flavor. And I've been doing that ever since, because sometimes you'd think 1 spoon for 1 cup, but sometimes it's just not right, and it could just change the entire taste,
The flavor
of the coffee.
profile.
The
There
flavor
actually is like
profile of the
so much
coffee.
science that goes into making coffee.
Truly,
Oh,
there
for
is
sure.
like pour over versus like
Mhm.
I don't know.
Yeah, I
the
went
other.
to Fairgrounds right down from Aria one time ever because like I don't know what the deal was, but I went there and just grabbed a coffee, and I was like, I had no idea how to order because like I was like, dude, I just want something simple
like,
and like
black
straight up. And he's like, oh, you want a
coffee.
drip coffee or whatever? And I'm like, what? Yeah, whatever,
sure.
dude.
Yep.
Just
Yep.
give me something with no cream. Just fill it to the rim. But yeah, it's like there's so many kinds now. And then iced coffee, I don't like it.
You know the difference between
I want it hot. What?
You know the difference between light roast and dark roast and all that?
One is roasted more.
Well, yeah, it's
Well,
pretty,
I
pretty
think
obvious,
light
but,
roast
like,
technically supposedly should have higher caffeine content.
It does
It
have
does.
because
more.
it
Yeah.
doesn't get roasted out of it.
Exactly.
Yeah, I knew that. 'Cause
Yeah.
I'm a G.
Look at you.
I'm a G.
Yeah. Straight G.
I went when I was in Puerto Rico, like way back, I don't know, a million years ago. I went to this place and they had like won an award for like the best coffee in Puerto Rico, and it was so good. Like it was like I still like can think about it. I'm like, oh my god, that coffee was so good. Like it was just perfect, mellow, like everything. And I went back the second time and I brought home like 5-pound bags of it or something because I was just like, this is the coffee that I like. This is my favorite. And then I think it closed during COVID, sadly. But yeah, I'm a big coffee fan. I drink too much. Like today,
well, yeah, you throw espresso into it too.
Yeah, that's a little more my bag.
I tell people I'm like the world's worst coffee shop owner because my at-home coffee routine is so basic. Like I love Dunkin' Donuts vanilla flavored coffee. Oh. It's so terrible, but I'm like I've been drinking it since college, and that's when I started drinking coffee.
It's like a comfort thing.
Like, yeah,
I have like a weird thing where I despise flavored coffee, but I want flavored creamer. Yeah. Which people don't understand. But to me, flavored coffee tastes like perfume. Like it just tastes like
hazelnut.
Flavored coffee, like the coffee actually being flavored, to me, it tastes like something about it just like tastes off to me. Is it just
overpowered?
Yeah, maybe, or just it literally to me tastes like it tastes chemically somehow to me, and it might be like completely like all mental. Like there's no doubt about that because
I mean it probably is. Like how do they flavor it?
Well, and I've tried other vanilla flavored coffees and I don't like it. Like, it has to be Dunkin' Donuts vanilla.
So, I don't. Maybe they use real vanilla.
I doubt it. It's Dunkin' Donuts.
Who knows? But I just like I do like flavored creamer. So then people be like, yeah, I made you like a vanilla latte. It was like vanilla coffee. I'm like,
dude, my mom has been drinking French vanilla creamer for like probably 50 years at this point.
The International Delight
That's
version.
what I use. I use that in half and half. I mix them.
She might not be right now, but for a very long time. One time I remember she had this like a Dodge Dynasty car, I think, right? Is that a car? Dynasty?
Sounds right.
Never heard of it.
Can you look one up, dude? Can you please look it up? Dodge Dynasty, I think. And she spilled like her coffee in it, and it stunk like that creamer grossness.
It's a bad smell.
It's a terrible smell.
My bad habit is leaving dishes like in my office for 4 days, and then I bring it home. I'm like, ooh, that was a terrible idea.
Bad idea. Like the coffee mug that's got the residual in it. And it's
and I can never finish a whole cup of coffee.
And it's like a disc of something disgusting.
Seeing if we got this Dynasty over here.
Are we
Hell yeah, dude!
Yeah. Oh, look at this.
That's the car I took my driver's test in. And I backing out of the driveway, I didn't look, and I almost got hit by a car just backing out of the driveway on our way to go take my driver's test. Yeah, and I was like, okay, that was a good lesson. And then I passed the test. So.
Nice.
I needed like that wake up call.
Yeah, like got you like you didn't have a cup of coffee in you yet.
I wasn't drinking coffee at that time.
I never took driver's ed. It's like a long story, but so
wait, you never took driver's ed? Mm-mm. Do you drive?
Mm-hmm. So if you
in don't Minnesota, need to take driver's education to get a driver's
once you turn 18,
license.
you can just take the test.
Okay.
So I just didn't get my license until I was 18, and I failed it the first time because. Shockingly, I never took driver's ed, nor did I ever study because it's just like not my style. Yeah. So I was like, I'm gonna go do it. It'll be fine.
We'll just see how this goes.
100% failed because I was supposed to take it like with one car that I was like familiar with, and then it didn't work out. And at the last minute, I ended up using like my grandpa's car, who my grandpa taught me how to drive, and I was
gonna ask.
I hit somebody. I tapped someone gently when I was parallel parking one time, and he was like, "That's what bumpers are for."
Oh, well, that's nice.
You hit a car while you were parking?
Just tapped it gently. And that's what bumpers are for. That's what my grandpa told me. When I tell my dad and aunts and uncles that story, they're like, that is not how he taught us. But okay. But I failed before I could even turn on the car.
Oh, no seatbelt?
Because I couldn't figure out how to adjust the side mirrors, and pull the emergency brake or something. Because it was like a car I wasn't used to, and I was just like hadn't had enough experience with enough cars, and I think I like got stressed out by it or something and panicked. It was just like, and they're like, okay, so get out, you're done.
Like before you even drove anywhere.
Yeah, I didn't even get to turn it on. It was terrible. No. But the second time I passed, it was
there you go. I thought I for sure failed from like the moment I pulled out. Because when you like are waiting in line and you're watching all the cars like go in front of you. Yeah. Well, all the cars in front of me were going right. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to go out. I'm going to go right. So like I start driving. He's like, okay, go left. So then I like start to go right. And he's like, no, left. And so I like whip it. I'm like, well, I failed. So then the rest of the time I was just like super laid back. So I'm like, I already failed.
Yeah,
and then
we're done here.
when he told me I passed, I'm like, wait, actually, like this is amazing. I thought I failed at the beginning.
Oh, wow.
That's awesome.
Amazing. Yeah, that's pretty far off topic too. I
Yeah,
love
sorry.
that.
I don't know how we got here.
Well, you brought up the car, so
Oh yeah,
you know.
that's right.
I
Why
bring
did we
up
bring
the
up the
dice.
car?
Because
it
I was
smelled
talking about
bad?
the coffee smell.
You're talking about your grandma.
And I took the test in that car, and then I got a exhibition driving offense on it too. I was like,
What is that?
Yeah.
I squealed my tires. It's like a front wheel drive car, and it doesn't have a lot of balls.
You
But
get a ticket for that?
yeah, I got a ticket like near where I grew up and stuff, and I had to go to court for it. And they like
Actually?
tried to make me feel like shit about it, and I was like 16 years old, like hanging out with a friend, trying to be cool,
Well, yeah.
and they're like, "Fuck you," and so to pay some money and got a ticket, and yeah, it was like a reckless driving type of offense for
I didn't
like
even know it was a thing.
16-year-old dude, like just trying to have some
How
fun.
far ago was that?
When I was 16.
Yeah. How many years
How
ago was
many-
that?
That's a lot of years. I don't know the math on that, but well, I'm
I feel
30,
like we're 2 for 5 on people trying to get your age right.
I'm 39 now.
So I think I already know your age because we've talked about this offline. We've talked about this.
Yeah, you'll edit that out, right?
Are you ashamed
I
of your
forgot to
age?
color my beard. Yeah, I joke that I'm a boomer, and Alex is like, "Yep."
Get off my lawn.
I was gonna circle back.
Because we're the same. Hey, well, we will be the same age in the same year,
When's your birthday again?
October.
Mine's March.
So I'll be 39 this year.
Yeah,
Oh my God,
I
I'm
just
gonna be
turned
39 this year.
I'm gonna
So
be
you're
43
younger than me?
in a few
Yeah.
years.
Okay.
Few years. I'm gonna be
You thought I was
43 in a
older
few
than you?
months.
I never knew. I thought we were about the same age.
Oh, okay.
So I didn't know if it
How
was a
dare you
little
think I was
older.
older than you?
Well, shit, come on now. You want to get calling me out like that? Damn, son of a... This episode is sponsored by IMAV, an innovative and leading audiovisual company based in the Twin Cities. If you're looking to elevate your next event, all you have to do is reach out to the team at IMAV. They'll put together a package that not only fits your budget, but takes your event to the next level. IMAV strives to not only be a resource, but an asset to the success of your event. Whether you need video, audio, or lighting, the professionals at IMAV can execute and run your meeting or event flawlessly. Their team is a dream to work with and always deliver a final product that leaves guests blown away. Find them online at imav.pro. Use promo code EVENTLIFE when you contact them to receive 30% off all equipment rentals for your first event. Again, go to imav.pro to lock in the best audiovisual vendor for your next event. No, I wanted to ask you though about like the approach, and this is getting off topic unless you have more to say about coffee.
About cars or coffee.
We're going back
I mean,
to
we've
the
gone into a lot
dynasty.
of
We're going
ways.
back to the dynasty. No, just kidding.
Okay.
No, I was gonna go back to planning and like the approach for like designing. Like, what is your approach when you have like a bride? Like you're starting fresh with a new client, and like just what is the overall approach? Like, is it like you just have a questionnaire that they fill out? Is it all like just tell me what you're looking for, and then you kind of design things? Like, what is that full approach kind of look like?
So basically, yes. So we send them a form to fill out, and that like gets us started.
About the last conversation.
I didn't know. I just like hardcore zoned out.
Still giving me like a side eye.
No, I wasn't. I was actually totally zoning out on you. I'm so sorry. You know that moment where you're like thinking about something, you're like still staring at you. Keep going. Sorry.
Well, I'm like
Changing
I'm like,
my.
shit, I'm fucking up or something.
No. We're all a little like loopy today. I feel like it's been a long day.
It's the rain. It's literally been pouring rain.
We had a whole program today already.
Yeah.
Where
We've
we
been
had
in
lunch.
meetings
We had
all
a
day.
meeting at 9 a.m. Like it's been a long day.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I put this on at like 7:30. I'm like, okay, I cannot spill. So I need to wear the same outfit all the way till 8 p.m. as a long time.
Yeah. You gotta like get some longevity out of this. Yeah. No, I was just full on zoning out on your face. Apologies.
Such a nice face.
Yeah.
Oh,
I was
shit.
pondering your age.
You're like, damn, dude looks way older than
Yeah, I
that.
was like, damn, I thought he was definitely older than me.
Yeah.
Continue.
Yep.
Okay, so we have a form to fill out. I vet the forms first. This is gonna sound terrible, so you might want to do some editing on this. But like full disclosure, when I get the form back, I do some vetting on the client first to see like, do they have the budget to do like above and beyond things?
No, that's very appropriate, and people should be vetting their clients. You are hiring them as much as they are hiring you.
Yes, exactly.
Yep.
So they go into one of two categories. Do they have the budget and the trust in me to bring it to the next level?
Mm-hmm.
If the answer is yes, then I do their design deck. If their budget is low and they really just want like the same wedding that we produce, like they've seen our work on our Instagram and that's what they want, then I pass it to Julia to do the design deck. Not that because Julia is bad, like Julia is fantastic at her job. She does a great job.
Right.
But I feel like I thrive on clients that trust me and want me to do something different, where Julia is very good at like being calm with a client and like kind of doing the same event but in a different way. Like we have a structure of how we design things, and then she fills in those different boxes in different ways. So like, for example, if the budget is low, we're not going to do chargers and upgraded linens for every table. We'll do an upgraded head table, and that's where we're going to invest the money in, and that's what she'll design is those things.
Yeah.
Where if I have a client whose budget allows us to design more than just one area, then I take on those clients and pull inspiration kind of from everywhere. I like to like bring in new ideas to see like, how does this scare them?
Right.
Will they,
what's their
how
appetite
they
for
accept this?
Yeah.
And most of the time they're like, oh my God, I love this so much. Like, I can't wait to see this. We had a client in October where she was one, like had a great budget, had a 60-person guest count, and still a great budget. I'm like, we can do
sky's the
so
limit.
many. Yeah. She's like, is that enough money? I'm like, this is great. Like, this is perfect. And so I really got to like run with that one. And it was nice because she got married with 60 people, but the venue holds 250.
Right.
So how do you, kind of like Aria, like how do you make a space this big feel intimate for 60 people?
Yep.
So it was more of like a, how do we think outside of like the wedding box? So those are the clients that I take on that I like kind of rejuvenate my love for this job. We're like, because I've been doing it for so long, like, this is great. Like, we want to design a pretty wedding for you. It's going to be beautiful. You're going to love it. But I like to do these clients over here.
100%.
Well, and having like people that you work with, because you guys are a great team. Julia's awesome.
Yeah, she's amazing.
But understanding like the things that you do good and the things that she does good and the things that you do want to do and don't want to do and like vice versa, I feel like is so like powerful and can lead to like such stronger teams.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. You guys have worked through that.
Yeah, she's been a godsend. She originally hired just as interviewed as an assistant, and at that time I was looking to hire like more of a full-time person. So in her interview it kind of came up that she was looking for that. I'm like, perfect, like I have hours for you. So she came on board, and then our friendship has really taken off too, which is fun. Like, obviously we work together. And like, I think it took her a while to get over like, yes, I am your boss. But like when we're out and about, like, I'm not your boss. So like, take that hat off. Like, you can drink. I'm not going to judge you. But now like we've gone on trips together and we do this retreat, like a photography retreat that we help design, and she gets to be a part of that. So it's been a really fun experience for me. Obviously, like hiring your first person is always like, and she isn't my first person, but she's been with me now the longest. But when you have that, like, okay, I have to show up because I have this team now that's relying on me. And she's just been so gracious throughout, like hopping on board during COVID, and like her role has kind of shifted and changed in like the last few years. And she's also grown up in her job too. Like she is amazing, and she's forming her own connections. She actually works for a venue and then another event planner, which for me, I think only helps them do better at their job. Like I have a couple of girls that work for me and somebody else, and people ask like, does it bother you that they work for another planner? And I'm like, no, like I don't do everything the best way, and I'm not perfect at every single thing. So they might learn something that they prefer from another planner, and it's only going to make them better at their job.
Well, and I think the people that think that or wonder about that are like falling into that like gatekeeping camp where it's like, none of this is like that groundbreaking, right?
Yeah.
We're not like, there's no brain surgery happening here. Like, there's nothing I mean, there's things that people do that are like signatures or like that they do often, or, they have like a process that's different, but most of it is things that is like in the world already, and they're just using it in a different way.
You can easily Google it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, gatekeeping like employees. I feel like we've had this conversation. We had this conversation with Tom and Tao about like just like not letting people like achieve their full potential. Really, only like kneecaps you. You know,
Exactly,
because
yeah.
they'll leave. That's the thing, right? Why wouldn't they?
Yeah.
So if you can let them grow,
they might leave and not be a friend.
Right.
And our industry's small.
Oh, so small.
Yeah. And relationship based.
Yeah. I actually just had a conversation with one of the girls that works for me on the flower side. Like we just did like a check-in, and she's like, I just want to make sure like you're still okay knowing that I want to start my own business one day. And I'm like, yes, absolutely. Like I'm a female business owner. Like who would I be if I'm like, no, like I'm going to cut that dream out like that.
Yeah.
That wouldn't be great of me if this is what I do. Like I want to support you.
And who knows how long it'll take
you.
her. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
It's not like it's going to happen tomorrow, or she's going to be stealing some kind of like grand trade secrets. You know, there's no Coke
there isn't
recipe
really.
here.
And like there's so
Coca-Cola.
many events that happen. There are so many events that happen, like social, corporate. There will never not be enough events.
Right.
So for me to be like, oh, I'm not going to train you because you might take an event from me. I'm not worried about that. Like I feel like people hire the person and like what you bring to the table. It's not like, oh, I'm hiring her because her timelines are pretty. That's not it.
Yeah.
Do you have like a favorite highlight so far that I think I already know the answer. I'm gonna guess it, but I won't say it and I'll tell you if I'm right.
I think we already know. My career highlight is planning Star Awards last year.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, that was like a dream come true.
Yep.
Because the first year you went was the 2019?
Yeah, it was
Okay.
the Jason's year.
Yeah, the Ides of March theme, which that one was bananas. So that was quite one to start on. Like that year, so I did, I was director 2 years before that, and I was kind of still helping with some things, and then I did the sponsorship. That was the highest sponsorship, like in-kind product that we've ever had, and it was over $500,000 worth of in-kind sponsorship for that event.
That's amazing. Well, and was Gretchen's the year before?
No, the year before that was Lisa Marie.
Okay.
That was the it was at Mystic Lake, and it was like spy themed.
Oh yeah, I saw that one.
Yep. And then the year before that was the black and white one at Machine Shop. That was mine.
That was yours.
The Unluckiest Bash. Yep.
Okay, so that's the one. I don't know why I thought it was Gretchen's. That
She did design and decor.
Okay, so maybe that's why.
So we worked together on that
I
one.
remember seeing pictures of that one, and I'm like, "What is this event? Like, I need to go to this.
Yeah.
Like, how do I get an invite? I knew nothing about ILEA at the time.
Yeah.
So I saw that one, and that is kind of like what like started flags going in my head. Like, okay, you should look into this.
Yeah.
And then actually, like, funny story about Gretchen. I don't think this now because I have gotten to know her. But I went to an ILEA event shortly after that.
Yeah.
And I like went up to her to introduce myself, and she like turned right around and had like no time for me. I'm like, okay, like that's fine.
You're like, never mind.
Yeah. But now like I know her and she's great.
Yeah.
But it was just so funny like to see like that was my first ILEA experience, and now I like scream from the rooftops how great ILEA is because it truly is so fun.
It really is. It's great. Gretchen did the year, I think, right before mine. I think she did 2015, because it was that Aria, and it was the Storytellers Ball, I believe is what it was called.
I don't remember that one.
So she
Yours
was a planner
the first one that like
that you saw the
started
photos
it,
of. Yeah.
yeah.
So I think she shared a lot of photos from because she did the design and decor for that one. So it was really fun. And hers was fantastic. It was the first Star Awards that I had been involved with because it was at Aria. And it was just like, I met a lot of really great people there. I met Sarah Johnson there. We had like, she was on the food and beverage committee, and I overheard her saying something about having like these cupcakes with like alcohol in the center of them, and I was like, so they might know because we had the liquor license that I had. And she said that she was like a little terrified of me because I just like came out of nowhere and was like, what?
Yeah.
But it's such a fun, transformative event. So you did an amazing job.
Thank you.
It was yours. Yeah, it was great.
I think for me, it was like I can't believe I like got picked to do this because people that plan the Star Awards and like that go to it, in my mind, are like the idols. Like, I want to be these people. I want to be on the same stage as these people. So then being able to actually like do that was like so exciting at first. And then when you realize you're like, oh shit, like I'm going to be on this stage and I could fail.
And in front of all my peers,
all these people.
and
Except
people
that
I want to impress.
You almost can't fail because you have so many people that you've brought on board that it make it like fail proof.
Yeah, it feels like you're failing every second of it, but it also always is totally fine. And it's just like it's it's like drinking from a fire hose doing the Star Wars, especially if you haven't been on the board and stuff beforehand.
Yeah.
So it's like jumping with both feet. It's a lot.
Yeah.
But it was fantastic.
And I honestly didn't really know what I was doing. Like, thank God Castina was there.
Mm-hmm.
Cause I'm like, that was my first board role, was doing the Star Awards. So she was huge in helping me, and just like everybody else in Minneapolis in general. Like, they're so uplifting, and like they want to help in any way that they can. And I really felt that throughout the planning process. Like, people just willing, like, what can I do? How can I help you? What questions do you have?
Prior to Jason's year, actually, the Star Awards director typically would fall off and disappear. And so when he came on board, I was like, maybe we should have like a past president position to help like kind of shepherd that person. Cause like, I mean, just like we were talking about earlier, like the most important thing you can have is history, right? And having like the person who just did it very recently with that historical knowledge. And I was still on the board at that time doing sponsorship and or partnerships. So I was like, I'm not the most recent director, but like, let me just step into this role with him so that he's not, because also Jason came on board after at a much later date than most people do, because there was a different director who ended up accepting a position out of town, and she like left Minnesota and had to like stop planning it, and so he jumped on board like very late in the game and had
he
to
did
like
a great job.
Yeah, I know, and knowing that too on top of everything else is like kind of
that was
amazing.
Jason's year. Wow.
Yeah, he came on board probably like 6 months later than most people do.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, or
Well, if anyone can do it, it's him.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And it hasn't always been something that was as easy to get people to do, just because it is such a huge endeavor and it's kind of intimidating. And actually, funny story about Gretchen. So when it was at the whatever year it was before the year I did it, she had talked to me that night, and I was pretty drunk, because this is back when I used to drink more, and the Star Wars is where everybody gets drunk, right? And so I was like pretty intoxicated. She's like, I think you should plan it next year, and I was like, yeah, I should, you're right, let's do this. And then the next day she texted me, she goes, did you agree to do the Star Wars last night? And I was like, yeah, I think I did, just like LOL. And then she goes, that's a fucking contractual agreement, here we go. And I was like, okay.
That's funny. Is that really how it happened?
Yeah.
And then, okay,
she was like,
nice.
I have it in writing now. So, and I was like, oh, okay, I guess, yeah, sure.
Well, you have a whole year now.
Yeah.
If it was like the next day.
It was literally like the next day.
That's pretty cool.
So I did actually know that I was going to be doing it. And also it was like, I want to say it was like in the spring of 2016. And so Machine Shop was under construction at that point. It was this 2016 Star Awards, wherever that was, is where we talked about it. And Machine Shop was under construction. And so that I knew we were opening it in a couple months. And I was like, yeah, like it would make such sense for me to be the director at Machine Shop, like, and have it be right after we open. Turns out that's a terrible idea. Just simply from a like work-life balance, all those things. But also in some ways it was great because like I didn't have to wait for answers. I could just say yes to me all the time. So that was awesome.
Yeah,
I think this, and it's done.
And I said, yes. Yeah, here we go. Done.
That's awesome.
Mission granted.
All right, I want to do some rapid fires.
All right, let's do it.
You want to do some?
Yeah, go for
All
it.
right. Plated meal or buffet?
Ooh. It depends on who the caterer is.
Oh, shit.
If it's a buffet, I'd say Brasa wins the buffet. If it's not Brasa, then plated.
Fair.
Nice. I was going to ask you, what's your favorite caterer? But then maybe that's too much. We won't do that to you.
Can I say my favorite dish?
Yeah. Is it give away who the caterer is?
I think I know which one it is, actually.
There's a delicious ramen dish
Yes.
from a caterer that is like that. Actually, there's two. The ramen and then a butternut squash ravioli that I like have dreams about.
The ramen that we recently had in the ILEA program. I feel like we can say it was Food Gallery. I'm just going to say.
Yeah.
And they actually
it's
told
like
me
a beautiful dish.
it is
my
beautiful,
favorite.
and it's really beautiful and filling and delicious.
Yeah,
and
it's
like
a vegetarian option.
Yep. Which is hard to come by, and they can do it gluten free.
Yeah.
So it's great.
That's
And
but
when
Craig's
they
butternut squash ravioli is also very good.
Cool.
Probably haven't had that, but yeah.
Band or DJ?
I'm so bad at this. Rock With You is honestly like my favorite
Hybrid.
because they're both. Like I love a good like dirty playlist that I can like, like 10 p.m. rolls around, grandma's left, like let's get down. But I also love like the interaction of a band.
Yeah.
So that's why like I always refer Rock With You if they like both or if they're undecided. I'm like, you can get both and it's great.
It is kind of taking over the marketplace.
Yeah.
Like, it is such a good option because you literally kind of get the best of both worlds. You still get the live elements, and for like some older people that want that live band thing, they still kind of have that. And in many ways, it's almost better because then, like, you're maybe hearing the song as it's meant to be played.
Yeah.
But with like a little extra.
Just a little extra.
Little extra
It's
zest.
so cool. And the band killed it at ILEA this year
Yes.
and last year.
Yeah.
They were the band for the after party both years and kicked ass. I mean, it was awesome.
And the
Well, and they were
sessions did
Jason's year too. Was Rock With You?
Yeah.
That's actually the first time I saw them. Ross was there. Huh. I'm like, who is this person?
Well, and the sessions, they kind of have a same thing.
Yeah.
And they did
that's
the
Omar Bliss.
walk-on
Yeah.
music
Mhm.
for the Star Awards this year.
Yeah, and they
which
were
was really
the band
fun.
for Cassina's year.
Yeah, they're awesome too.
Yep. I love the sessions. And that's one of the 3 that I plugged to people.
Yeah.
Yep, for sure. Chicken, steak, or veg?
Veg, always.
Really?
Are you vegetarian?
No, but
Okay.
you can only have so much wedding chicken.
Yeah.
And
True that.
9 times out of the 10, the vegetarian option is a pasta dish. And that's where my heart lives, is in carbs.
I was slightly panicking for a second because I was like, did not get you a vegetarian meal today for that luncheon.
Oh, no,
was
I
like,
will
"Whoop."
eat chicken.
Okay.
Especially if it's 4 seasons. It's going to
Yeah.
be good. But, like, you do weddings every weekend. Like,
Yeah,
you're going to have
wedding
chicken.
chicken.
You just get sold.
When you say veg, I thought like the cauliflower steak.
Oh, no. Don't
thing.
sign me up for the cauliflower steak.
Just the pasta.
I always like to confirm what the vegetarian dish is before I commit to it.
For
That's
sure.
fair.
Favorite song, band, or music group?
Oh, that's like 3 very different
I
things.
know that. I don't know why I have them all.
I want to
Favorite
dance
song.
with somebody.
hard, okay.
Favorite song.
I want to dance with somebody is always like the one that gets me
Excellent.
out there.
Really?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, that's a good one.
Okay. Favorite band?
Do you get like all up into the high octave ones and you're like,
I
go-
try.
Yeah.
I don't hit it, but I'm like,
It's,
it's loud
at that
enough.
point. It
People don't
doesn't
know what I'm
matter.
saying.
Yeah, it's not karaoke.
Yeah. Band, like wedding band or like,
Favorite band?
oh gosh, that's so hard. My playlist is like really all over the place. Like
That's
there's
what I- that's
country
why
on
I was surprised
there.
when you
There's some like
yeah.
Christian. There's some like raunchy ghetto thug stuff in there. I like it all. I don't have a favorite.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah, it's so hard to pick. I don't really ever decipher like a difference too. Like music. I like music.
Yeah.
That's what I like. So
I feel like
Um,
music conveys feelings. So like depending on how I'm feeling, like if I just need to like get motivated, I put on like my Monday playlist, which is all like rap, girl rap.
Yeah.
I have a playlist that's like when I have to go to a meeting and like it's like my first time talking to somebody for the day and I got to get myself hyped and it's like everything that I listened to like in college at the bar basically.
Yeah.
Oh, I got a hype list too, actually. Yeah. It's my gym playlist. Wine or beer?
Ooh, wine. I don't know. Now like that I've gotten older, wine does not. It does me dirty.
Yeah?
Yeah, so I've gotten more into like gummies.
It's legal in Minnesota.
I know it's
Great.
legal, so I don't have to hide that.
Yep.
Only because I feel the same, but I'm not hungover the next day.
Oh, yeah.
So I actually just a month ago got the Apothecary wine drops.
Oh, yeah.
It's like NA
Yeah.
wine.
Mhm.
It gives you like the same feeling that wine does, like that wine down without the hangover. And I've actually
What?
really gotten into that.
I'm going to have to check that out.
Yeah. So that and gummies.
Yeah.
Nice.
I'm gonna try that too.
Yeah, everyone's all about those gummies these
Yeah.
days.
I
Or
do like
the-
a sour beer every now and then. Like if I go to like a brewery and they have a sour, I do like that.
I used to do gummies when they were cool.
When
they were legal. When you didn't know
When they
how
were
much the dose
illegal.
was. When
They
you're
were
like,
way
this
cooler
could
when
be
they were
5, this could be
illegal.
25.
Yeah.
Let's find out. Here we go.
Yeah, you made them yourself.
Yeah.
You don't know what any
Yeah.
quantity.
You don't know how to
is.
mix this. Yeah.
Batch of brownies, yo, or whatever.
Yeah.
Inside or outside ceremony?
Inside, honestly, like I'd rather have an inside
yeah.
ceremony and then cocktail hour outside.
Oh,
I like
fair.
to be predictable. There's so much
Oh,
more
for
you can
sure.
do without having to like rely on weather.
Yeah, it's a little
So-
terrifying. And it's like if someone has envisioned this outdoor situation and then you have
Yeah.
to like burst their bubble.
I had
It's
a bride
rough.
that like her whole day was wrecked because she picked this venue, which you should never do. She picked this venue based on the outdoor spot. Well, of course, it rained on her day.
Of course it did.
And so they had it inside, which the inside was terrible. Like, it's not cute. And like, she got the gallery back and hated them and like said her wedding looked like a funeral home. And like, we can't
Can
post
we
pictures
say
of her
No, don't
wedding.
say it. Don't say it. Tell me later. though.
Afterwards, I want to know.
Tell me later.
Make a
though. I
little
wanna
note.
know
She
that.
was
Yeah.
a unicorn bride that turned into a donkey. Edit that out too. Actually, she won't be watching this. It's fine.
Yeah, I was gonna say no. That's like whatever.
Yeah, she already got married. She doesn't need event advice. That's so funny. Rap or rock? I think I know.
I'd say rap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fave podcast.
Event Live TV, obviously. If it's not this one, then it's True Crime Obsessed.
Oh, okay.
True crime obsessed?
Yeah, it's like funny crime.
Okay.
So like they cover like dark things but make it funny. I was listening to Crime Junkie for a very long time, and then I like got paranoid. Like I'd go out to my car and be like,
Oh yeah,
"Someone's
it
watching."
is a little like.
So then I needed a break.
Yeah.
And then I found this one that's
Yeah.
like humorous. So it's like uplifting but covering like
so-
dark stuff.
right?
Fave vacation spot.
Oh, okay, that's hard. I like just recently got into traveling more to
I feel like you've been traveling
That's
a
what
lot.
Oh
I'm-
yeah,
that's what I was
2023 was like
thinking,
the year of travel for me. I really needed it.
I've been very living vicariously, like very jealous about it. Yeah.
Honestly, after going through that COVID time zone, I never traveled and I just worked constantly. And I'm like, I need to schedule in trips for myself and things that are like time for me to get away. And so that was like last year I said yes to like every opportunity, which is great. Like obviously not sustainable every year. Yeah, I mean, I wanted to be.
Yeah.
But now like I'm trying to be intentional with planning a trip at least once or twice a year.
Yeah.
So last year, like my big trip was going to Hawaii. I've always wanted to go. It was like the most relaxed I've ever felt in my life, which when we were planning the trip, it was for my friend's birthday. And so I think we were thinking like, oh, we'll go out and party every night. And then we picked like the oldest island possible. Like it's all the retired people. Everything literally shuts down at 10. So there was like no nightlife. And so we were forced to go to bed at 10:30. And then at the end of that trip, we're like, actually, this was really nice having an excuse to go to bed and not feel like we have to stay up.
And not feeling hungover the next day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was, I came back so refreshed from that trip. It was so nice. And then this year I'm going to Italy for 10 days. So I'm like pumped.
Super cool.
Yeah.
Fun.
Nice. Least favorite event trend.
Oh, where do I start?
I feel like
think
it's a
on
good
a-
one for a planner.
On a floral side, I'll tackle both since I do both.
All right.
On a floral side, the eucalyptus. Like I think people just think that's the only greenery that is out there.
It's so sticky.
Yeah, it's sticky. Like your hands are disgusting
Oh
when
my God,
working
yeah.
with it. It's not a great smell. Like in the shower, sure, but like in your bouquet, not so much.
It's a little medicinal, I feel
And it's
like.
just so limp. Like you can't like form it to be what you want it to be.
just does what it does. Right?
Yeah. So that's one of those like teaching people, hey, like there's more than just eucalyptus out there, and here's why I don't use it. It's
Yeah.
because it just hangs at the bottom of your bouquet. And then I'll show them an example and be like, oh, I see that now. So eucalyptus is probably like my least floral trend. On the planning side, games, like having to have like all these stupid yard games. You don't need to have like
20 options.
all of them. You
Right.
can have like one.
Yep.
But people are just like excited to go to weddings to like talk.
Yeah.
You don't have to like provide all the games.
Plus, if you have like a band, like when do you even do that stuff? Yeah.
I feel like at the gate, like 1 or 2 is great for like people who are maybe like socially awkward
Yeah.
or don't know as many people there.
Mm-hmm.
I went to a wedding recently where they had during the cocktail hour board games and people were like into it.
Yeah.
But I didn't know anyone there. So I was like, I'm gonna play solitaire over here. Like,
Yeah, just be
don't mind
by
me.
myself.
I didn't, but that's what I thought. I was like, well, I don't know what else to do right now. But yeah, I think sometimes people think they need to check all the boxes, and it's
Yeah.
like you can have 1 or 2. That's okay.
Yeah. And we're adults. Like we can entertain ourselves for the most part. Which I will say, like asterisk to what I just said, we had a wedding earlier this year where they had all the games, but it was like themed for them. Like they met, like their first date was at our arcade. So they like brought in like the Cruising USA things. They brought in whack-a-mole. So like it made sense.
Yeah.
But it's when people are like, okay, I'm going to bring in like 4 sets of bags and
Or
like
the Jenga. Actually,
the Jenga.
I will say like
I hate the Jenga.
It's
so
Jenga's
loud.
kind of silly.
It's
yeah.
so loud.
It's so loud and, like,
it's
shocking.
jarring
Yes.
every time it happens. People used to always set that up on the like mezzanine level of machine shop, and you'd be downstairs, and I'll be like, crash! And
Yeah.
you're like, did a server tray just fall down,
Exactly,
or is
yeah.
it just Jenga? And it's always just Jenga. So did somebody's grandma just die? Like, no, it's just Jenga. Like,
And then they made like the oversized Jenga. I'm like, well, someone's gonna get hurt with
Yeah,
that
for sure.
when that falls over.
Yep.
Yeah. Plus, you throw alcohol into that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Last question, I guess, for you, because we're kind of nearing the end of the time here. But like, just like what your aspirations are. So you've done a lot. You've already hit that mark of like the ILEA director role, and you crushed it. So like and you talked about maybe starting like a venue, so maybe that's still in it. So like what kind of things like are you dreaming on? Like what's kind of some of those next things for you?
I would say definitely the venue part is a piece that I do want to get to eventually. A lot of people ask like, oh, you're going to start teaching? And I have like zero interest in that. Like, I do not want to like run seminars, and like people can come work for me and I can train them that way, but I do not want to like sell tickets to do that. Yeah. My passion is really for the people. So I like want to be in the trenches as long as I'm able.
Yeah.
Physically able. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think like the venue side is an eventual thing that I want to get to, so that when I am older and can't physically do 4 weddings a weekend, I can still be a part of it without having that like work on your body, you know?
Yeah.
So I'd say like long-term venue stuff. I definitely have relationships that I want to build and getting more involved. I would say like now that I've established myself in my career, like getting involved with ILEA and other programs, to doing things like outside of Minnesota. Like I would love to do destination weddings. One of my very first employees, actually, she moved to Arizona, and like we jokingly talk about like starting a branch out there, which when we talk about it, it's a joke, but also like in the back of my mind, I'm like, but maybe like growing that eventually could be fun.
100%.
So I've got ideas.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
It was great to have you. You'll
I'm
have to
so
come
honored
back
to be
sometime.
guest number 6.
Yeah.
We're like, what? Yeah.
Is that right, guys?
That's what I said, right? Episode 6?
Yeah, episode 6, yeah.
Just don't forget about me when you're famous. Bring me back.
Oh, yeah, you'll have to come back.
And vice versa. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Thank you for watching the podcast. Hit the like and follow button to stay updated on our latest episode. If you have ideas of topics or guests you'd like us to interview, drop us a comment, and we'll see you next time.